Sometimes it might rain, sometimes it might snow. Sometimes you might cry, be sad, you know. What that's shades of a man, baby. Shades of a man. Shades of a man. Sometimes you might stop, sometimes you might go. You might make mistakes, but that's just how you grow. Shades of a man, baby. Shades of a man. Shades of a man.
Welcome back to the Shades of Man podcast, where real men speak the truth, reflect, and tell their story. Please share this content with your friends and family. Today's episode is powerful and personal. I am joined by a man I deeply respect, a brother who's on a mission of healing, hope, fatherhood, brotherhood, manhood, etc., etc. Abdul Muhammad. He's the founder of My People's Clinical Services. I believe he's an icon in the social work and mental health space. He's the voice behind the Manhood Tree podcast, which I've been on, fortunately. His work is rooted in community, healing, and restoration of our men, especially men of color and fathers. What's going on, brother?
What's up? How you doing today?
I'm doing great. It's so fitting that we're having this podcast today because Sunday was Father's Day, and our episode today is about Father's Day. Mm-hmm. Did you do anything special on Father's Day?
Special? Not really. I mean, I got a couple gifts. That's about it.
So you got some cologne? You got some Brute?
No, I got a new lawnmower, and my kids got me some edible arrangements.
Oh, nice! Like you got a nice like a ride-on lawnmower, or a push one.
A rider.
Like zero turn.
Yeah, it's a John Deere. I mean, I haven't got on it yet, but it's a nice lawnmower.
You got a John Deere. That's nice. That's nice.
Quality stuff.
Yeah, I always wanted a zero turn. Right now, I got to push my whole yard. It's not that fun.
Yeah, I had a Ryobi electric one, but it stopped working. So I've been using my push mower for this whole season. So, I guess my wife thought it was time to upgrade. It takes a long time to mow my lawn.
Yeah, I got about an hour with the push, so it's not that bad.
Yeah.
What does it take you to do yours?
It takes a couple hours.
A couple hours?
Mm-hmm.
Man, because I didn't see all. What is all that? Because when I came to your house, I didn't see all that yard. Was it in the back?
Yeah, I got a backyard.
It's big, huh?
It's about the same. It's a little bit bigger than my front yard.
Okay. Well, today's episode is called Fatherhood is Forever and the Lack of It Is Too. As we know, fatherhood shapes us, whether it's through presence or painful absence. The silence of missing fathers can echo louder than any words. And too often we inherit what was never given. Before we sit down and get into this conversation, I want to share a poem I wrote about fathers. This is a poem I wrote, and as you know, this podcast, we start off with a poem and then we kind of reflect off the poem and talk. Mm-hmm. This poem is called I Need My Father. And I'm going to read this because I haven't memorized all my poems, so I'm going to read this off the paper. I stare out of the window of hope with none. Wanting to play with my friends, I am insecure. I am in the park alone, silence, wanting to be pushed on the swing. I need help. My bike has a flat. I stop. Does this cycle ever stop? I am lost. She is my first girlfriend. So nervous. How do I treat her? I am unsure. Sweet 16. I can drive. Thanks for the car. I don't need your presence. Where is your presence? I graduated, so scared. I look into the crowd. Chair empty. Twice. I'm going to be a father, overwhelmed. Need those words of wisdom. Crickets. I am still looking out the window of hope, crying, confidence dying, giving up. My son's image of me, you. Cycle repeats. Praying. At age 48, I still want a father. So I wrote that 4 years ago. Thoughts? Any thoughts on that as you listen to it?
Well, I thought that I liked the part about you didn't want his presence, you wanted his presence. I thought it was pretty impactful that for you that he didn't come to your graduations, and it sounded like at the end the impact of your fatherlessness actually kind of like had a multi-generational issue, because it sounded like you kind of repeated some of the things that happened to you. That's what I kind of heard at the end.
I think that I can definitely tell that a lot of the stuff you really wanted from your dad to give you advice, like with a girl you mentioned a little bit in there and everything, I think that really is something that's important that people really want from a dad, to give them advice, to give them, like, help them through their journey of life. And I think a lot of people don't get that, which is kind of really sad.
100%. My struggle in like manhood has been relationships, particularly with women, because I never seen how a woman should be treated by a man. So I didn't know how to treat a woman, and I kind of learned from like TV shows and what my friends said, and my friends are my peers, so they didn't really know either. So, and Bill Cosby was a great example, but I didn't, that's just a show. It's a half hour every week, and that was it. So I first want to start with Abdul. Like, I respect you as a father. I haven't had the pleasure of meeting, your father, who seemed to have a tremendous impact on you. But what do you think is the highlight of you as a father for your kids, and what was the highlight for your father for you?
Well, I don't know what the highlight for my kids would be. I would hope that it was, I'm pretty consistent, consistently in their lives. I will say that, over the last year, I've been kind of like thinking about not being present for my oldest daughter as much as I would have liked to. And so I think that, but I've had conversations with her about that. I've apologized, because I always thought I was a good father. Even though, due to circumstances of my health, when she was a little kid, I lived in Atlanta where she was, but then I had gotten kidney failure. So I came back to Connecticut because I needed some support. And due to me living in Connecticut and her living in Atlanta, I used to always talk to her on the weekends, and I always thought that was good. And but the more I thought about it, when I had my other children, and I thought about how much time, just not like time where you're necessarily doing anything, time where you're just eating dinner or you're just watching TV or they come in the room and whatever. The time balance didn't add up. My two younger children have, my son's about to go to college in about six or 8 weeks, and for that 18 years, he's had a father. He pretty much seen me every day, just about every day, except for if I was at a conference or on vacation or something like that, or he was somewhere. But every time, other than that, my other two children have seen me pretty much every day of their lives. My older daughter, my middle daughter, she's just going to college for the last 2 years. So this is like the first time that they haven't had me in their lives. And so I don't know what they will say. I do a lot of fatherhood work, but I don't necessarily sell that I'm the best father. I'm trying to be as good as I can. But I would hope that they would say, my father is, I would hope they would say I was a good father. I think that my dad I thought he was a good father. One of the things that I had the benefit of is, I have this this idea I've been working on, the 8 different types of fathers, right? And so it's really talks about how, like, if you would have asked me that question about my dad when he was like, when I was a teenager, I might not have thought he was the best. But I think having the benefit of being able to mature and become a man myself, have children, spend time with him, not necessarily have to be disciplined by him, but, you know, using him as a resource and talking to him about different things. I think that as I became a young adult and an adult, that relationship with my father was so much better than just when I was a kid. You know, when I was a kid, he was a great figure, someone to look up to. But, you know, he was also the person that handed out the discipline. And so I think that the benefit of being able to mature myself and get to know my father as a man is a lot different than just having that relationship with him when I was a child. And so I'm looking forward to my children getting older, because not to say I was a disciplinarian, I chose a different style of discipline than my father, but I think that there's much more to our relationship than it has been up until this point.
Wow. I mean, you looked at your father now, and so there's like, I believe there's different ages where you look at your father and need your father in a different way, right? So like, you know, as a kid, the things I missed was like what I wanted and what I see, and it brings tears to my eye, and I'm like, oh my goodness, that's a good father. But it may not be a good father. It's like a father dropping his kid off at the bus stop. Like, my father never did that for me, right?
Neither did mine.
Right, so I never got that feeling. But when I see it, I'm like, oh man, like I just automatically say, oh, that's a good father, because my father didn't do that, and I don't know if that's a good father. I just see that, and I wanted that.
My father never dropped me off at the bus stop, but one of the things my father always did, and at certain points, like in my childhood, there was like 10 kids in our house. My father never would miss a game. You know, if we were playing football, basketball, whatever, he was always up in the stands with a video camera. And so that, you know, show that you know, knowing that your dad is there, that always gives you like a little boost, makes you feel good. But he never dropped me off at the bus stop. You know, I walked to school. So it was like certain things that, you know, like, I think I agree with you. It's nice to see, like, every time I see a father walking down the street with a stroller, it kind of hits me a certain way. Like, man, look at this dude. He's out here, no girl with him, no wife, no girlfriend, just him. And I'm impressed by his capability of taking care of his child, doing stuff with his child. And so, so I think that, you know, all those little things, like showing up, exposing us to different things, putting us in certain stuff, being a stand-up person in the community. I think all these things are the things that, you know, make you proud of fathers and proud of yourself, because you're able to do them as well.
What are some lessons you took from your dad that you kind of implement with your kids nowadays, you would say?
Well, I think one of the biggest lessons that I took from my dad is, it's kind of like, it's outside of parenting. It's really like, how do I carry myself inside the house, and how do I carry myself outside the house? And so there'll never be a time when at least I hope there'll never be a time that my kids are embarrassed by me because I'm doing something in the community that's not at a certain standard. And so my father was like somebody who was, you know, a stand-up guy. He was, you know, a leader. Some people looked up to him. And so I think that, to me, you know, I've seen people, you know, fathers, where they're out at a cookout or something and they're intoxicated, and, you know, it's an embarrassment, right? And so I would never put my kids in that position. You know, I think I'm a little bit sillier than my dad, you know, like in some ways, but overall, I think the biggest thing is that you have to carry yourself in a way, because I represent my family, like my whole family. I represent these kids, you know, all that, you know, on my business. And so I think that that's a very important thing that he taught me, that, you know, like, people are always watching you. And I mean, I think that, you know, one of the things that he did that has had the biggest impact on me, peace. My son's leaving out at 8 o'clock. He graduated from high school now. He's free. He's just living life.
Free bird.
But one of the things that had the biggest impact on me, I always tell people, like, one day my father was quitting a job. He was leaving a job. And I went with him to go, you know, pick up some stuff from his office. And, you know, if you ever get a chance to, like, see how other people see somebody. So, like, I was walking behind my dad, and I could see how people's faces would change and light up and, you know, have tears in their eyes because he was leaving. And but I was thinking, like, nobody's gonna cry for you, nobody's gonna laugh with you, nobody's gonna give you hugs, nobody's eyes are gonna light up when they see you if you're not a great person, if you're not a good person. And so that day really had an impact, because I said to myself that you know, I would really like to have people, when they see me, you know, because, like, there's people, right? You see certain people and you're like, oh man, here this guy comes.
Yeah.
But when you have a good man, when you see them coming, you're looking forward to talking to them, being around them, all that kind of stuff. So that was another little, you know, it's like, he wasn't like, Abdul, I'm about to show you how you get respect from people. He didn't say nothing like that. He just did it. You know, that was big for me.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a way to do it. It's better to just kind of not lecture them how to be a good man, but to just show them how to do it, you know? And I think that's awesome what your dad did.
Yeah.
So, one of the things that I remember the most about my dad when I really looked up to my father was when I used to be at my grandmother's house. She lived in the projects in Mount Vernon, and I would be outside, and my dad would pull up, and he would whistle. And to this day, I can't do his whistle, but, like, everyone knew his whistle. They'd be like, "Oh, that's your pops." And I was so proud, because when I was living in Mount Vernon, I was one of the few young boys that father was around. So all my friends looked up to me because my father was around.
Right.
And then we moved to Greenwich, and then my father left, and he was absent. And I want to hit that next. Like, what is the difference between a child with an absent father and a child with a father, and then how they grow up and the directions they go as fathers? Because I know some men that didn't have their father in their life, and they're amazing fathers as adults. And I know other men like myself who kind of had a father but didn't have a father, but his father showed him some bad things, and I wasn't a great father. So what do you think, like, is that just like a personal preference, or like how does that kind of develop?
Well, the thing is, I don't think you can ever know the impact. Like, well, okay, let me take that back. If we look at stats, most of the stats say if you have an involved father in your life, if you think about the drug use, education, getting someone pregnant, getting pregnant, all of those stats, they go into the positive if you have a father in your life. If you look at the same stats for no father in their life, those stats go down negatively. Now, for every statistic, there's an aberration, right? So you might look at it and say, like, yo, this person had his dad in his life. He was active, but this guy still ended up going to jail. He still had, he made poor choices. So I think that having a father involved lessens the likelihood of you having to experience negative things if he's a father that is trying to make sure you're aware of all that stuff. I think some fathers are, they might be around, they might be in and out, but their behaviors, the way they act, they haven't fully matured, and so their kids sometimes, and sometimes you have the greatest father ever, and their kids still make poor choices, and I think that can happen to anyone. I think those teenage years are very, it's like a toss-up. Like on any given day, a good kid from a good family can make a bad choice, and then it gets you all caught up. So, but I think if you look at the stats overall, fathers who are involved in their children's lives, the outcomes for those children are positive.
I would agree. And so I want to touch upon this. Spirituality, religion, spirit. It doesn't matter. Like you practice the Muslim religion, right? And I fasted this year, and I came to the temple with you, and that was an amazing experience for me. I'm a Christian, however. Do you think that plays a role with a father? Like their spiritual essence, and what role does it play?
Well, when I was a child, into my teenage years, basically until I went to college, I went to the masjid every week. You know, when we lived in New York, we went to Harlem every week. When we moved to Connecticut, we lived in West Hartford, we went to Hartford every week. And I think that having that foundation of religion, I think it helps. I think it gives you a certain structure. You learn some things. You develop your belief system. You know that there's a higher power greater than you. But I think that's like it's like I think when you really get down to like everything, right? I think having a religious base is something to lean on. It gives you something to fall back on, and so I think it plays a very important role in the development of children, and hopefully into good people. Because just yesterday I was listening to I was on TikTok, but on TikTok my TikTok from time to time gives me imams kind of giving a message, and I learned something yesterday that made me think about, like, it actually impacted something I did today based off of what I heard yesterday. And so I think that the exposure to religion has had a major impact on my life. I mean, a lot of the choices like not being somebody that drinks drinks, somebody that smokes, that's due to my religion. And I mean, when I was in college, this is when all this stuff is kind of like in your face. I was like, I don't do that. Now, not to say I'm perfect, because I made tons of bad choices, but I think some of the stuff got through, and I think it was helpful for me in the long run.
Do your kids also practice the religion with you?
Yeah, we pray. We don't go to the masjid on Sunday. I typically go on Fridays, and they're in school. But I feel like I don't know if I've done as good of a job as my parents. But I've at least done something to be able to give them something to fall back on. And what I like about this phase of their life, this is when they're going to start making choices for themselves. And my hope is that they make the right choices for themselves.
Yeah, because I know my dad and my mom tried to get me to go when I was younger to the churches, but eventually gave up. But then later on, when I turned like 21, 20, I finally started going back by myself. And I think that was really helpful for me to grow. And I think the fact my parents supported it, which way I decided to go, really helped, because it helped me grow as a person.
Yeah.
And my dad definitely encouraged me to go more. So I'm definitely thankful for him and my mom for doing that. So
yeah, I think it gives a good foundation. It's like, well, what do you believe? What how do you treat people? The thing I heard on TikTok was really about how it was saying, like, there's a Muslim who they pray all the time. They give zakat, which is charity. They do basically all the stuff and beyond, but they treat people bad.
Yep.
And so it's like, and the whole time I was listening to the guy, I was like, well, if you do all of this stuff, how could you treat people bad? But I'm sure there's somebody that's done this. And said that he was saying that person goes to hell because even doing all that stuff and then you treat people bad on a consistent basis, that's a X.
It's almost like using it as like a mask to get away with, kind of use it as like a fallback of, well, I can do all these bad things because I've done all these good things. Right. So just almost trying to use it as like a balancing scale instead of just trying to just throw one scale down and say, I'll just keep doing good stuff, Because especially when I started going back to church, I quit drinking and everything like that. And I think that really helped me a lot. So,
yeah. Keeps you out of certain trouble. Like there's certain stuff that I often think about how there's certain times where I have a level head because, I'm not intoxicated. I don't use drugs. And so, especially as I get older, like when you're younger, sometimes that testosterone will get in there, whether you're drinking or not. But as you get older, you have a mindset to be able to say, like, there's nothing that's going in my body that's going to be able to be my excuse for doing something. So if I do something wrong, if I curse somebody out or whatever I do, it's me. It ain't the drugs. It ain't nothing else. It's me. And so hopefully I won't be in that situation, though.
Yeah, especially my dad. One thing my dad taught me was no matter what you do, even if you're like under the influence or you did anything, you own up to it no matter what. Mm-hmm. Like your actions are your actions. No matter what you did, you own up to it. And I've always owned up to everything I did. And like my friends are like, well, I understand you had a problem with like your drinking and stuff. And and I was like, no, that no excuse. That was a terrible thing. It was a terrible thing. And I should be like not treated terribly, but also be recognized as that was not good. And all that stuff. And I thank my dad for a lot of that stuff too. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Excellent. We're getting some good information in here, and I want to talk about another subject that I think is very important for men. And my father experiences, I believe that I was unable to be the father that I wanted to be, and that I was capable of, is because of how I treated women. Being unfaithful, not treating them with respect. And I think a lot of fathers don't realize part of being a good father is actually being a good husband and treating the woman of your kids and your mom and everybody, like you're talking about, treating other people well. And where and how do we teach young people the importance of that? Because I see so many young people having babies with people that they don't treat well.
Well, this weekend I had this epiphany about fatherhood, about manhood, and so as I mentioned earlier, I have a 30-year-old daughter, and so when I was 19 years old, 20 years old, I got her mom pregnant. And this was my girlfriend, right? I loved her, all this good stuff. The interesting thing about that was that what I was thinking about this weekend was when she told me she was pregnant, my first response was fear. My response was like I was scared, not about having a baby per se, but scared about having to tell my parents that I had gotten someone pregnant. And then the thing that took a step further, I was thinking like, over that 9-month period, it never even came in my mind that maybe I should get married. Like maybe we should, since you're pregnant, maybe I should step up and we should get married. And it wasn't something that, I had never thought about. But so it made me realize that if you respond in fear when you find out you're going to have a child, you're probably not at the level of manhood that you need to be at to be bringing children into the world. And so, and if you don't even have in your mind, you don't even play it out like, man, maybe I should get married so I could be there for my child. If you don't even play it out in your mind, maybe your manhood. So we haven't even got to fatherhood yet. We're talking about just the manhood part to be able to think that through. And so I feel like, after I finished thinking about that, it really made me start realizing that, like when I had my other children, we planned it, right? I knew I was going to have a child. It was planned out. I was married. It was all, so we got married, and then some time went by, and then we had children because we chose to. And so obviously I had matured by that time. But so I just think that, a lot of men are out here having relationships, but they're not, and then they find out they're pregnant, but they don't do any assessment of themselves. Like if you are just a guy and you haven't even thought about, well, what kind of father am I going to be? Am I going to be, what is my relationship to fatherhood? Was my father in my life? Do I know how to take care of little children? Am I going to go out and support this child and my girlfriend, or am I going to get married? And so a lot of times I think we're moving on autopilot, if the situation happens, it just happens, and then we roll with it. But if we took some time to really do some deeper thinking, we wouldn't even put ourselves in that kind of situation. I don't know if I answered your question, but I really wanted to talk about that, so I just figured I'd just take a left.
It was powerful, and you said something that I want you to kind of dig into, because I know when we do the manhood and the neighborhood, boyhood, you kind of talk about this. I think many fathers skip a lot of the hoods and go into fatherhood without the manhood, without understanding the neighborhood and the boyhood, and that then is almost, it's not impossible, but it's very difficult to have the tools needed to actually be a good father. And what do you have to say about that?
Well, a lot of men go through life without doing any assessments. They don't think. Men, if you get a group of men together, most of and it's not like a group at my office. It's a group. It's just we get together as we just hanging out. We're gonna talk about the NBA finals. If we like baseball, we're gonna talk about a little baseball. At some point, we're gonna talk about women, and so our conversation is gonna stay in the realm of things we enjoy, of things that we might say, oh, yo, we're gonna go travel to this place, or I did this thing, or I tasted this new drink, or whatever. But we very seldom spend time saying, okay, what's the impact of my childhood, the way that I was brought up, the neighborhood I was brought up, and the family I was brought up in? What's the impact of that on who I am today as a man? What's the impact of my parents, how they treated me, the way they raised me, whether my father was involved in my life or not involved in my life, the way that they disciplined me? What's the impact of that on how I'm going to treat my children? So people get a kid and they don't start thinking about what kind of parent am I going to be until maybe never. They're responding to emotions. Like kid do something wrong, they hitting the kid. Now why you hit that kid? Because I never thought about what I would do if the kid did something wrong they're not supposed to do. So my immediate response was violence. And so we wonder why so many kids get abused, because their parents never took any time to just think it through. Like, what kind of man do I want to be? What kind of father do I want to be? Am I the type of guy that gets married and stays with a woman for the rest of my life? Can I do that? Do I have the capability to say, I'm going to be committed to this one woman, I'm going to have children with her, we're going to buy a house, we're going to do things together, and I'm going to be happy with that? They don't do any of that. So they go out, they meet a girl, she's nice, they start having sex. Next thing you know, they having sex without a condom. Next thing you know, boom, she pregnant. But I was just having fun. I'm not thinking about, if I have sex without a condom, there's a chance that she could get pregnant. If she gets pregnant, I am going to be responsible for a human being for the rest of my life. They don't think like that. They never take themselves through that process. And so that's why we have so many children out here, so many children where their fathers are like, psh, I'm out of here, man. This is not what I signed up for. I was just trying to hang out. I just thought she was pretty. She was a good-looking girl. I didn't want to be stuck with her for the rest of my life. I didn't want to give her child support. I didn't want to have to go to these kids' events all my life. They didn't think about none of this stuff.
That is my life in like a nutshell. And so now, you and I, my children are grown. Essentially, your kids are, at the grown stage. And then I look at Liam, who's at the beginning stage. And last show, we talked about love. And like Liam's version of love is what I wish like I had. And you didn't make the mistakes I made, Abdul, but you weren't ready at the time when you had conceived your first child.
Right.
And I don't think that'll ever happen with Liam, because the way he approaches like a relationship is so different than many men I know. Just kind of explain that, Liam, about like we had this discussion, and like ladies, I know you're gonna want to like we gave you his information last week, but it's definitely like this is a good guy.
Yeah, we talked about love last week and everything, and basically what I said last week was how I perceive every relationship I'm in and everything like that. Like if I'm with that person, I'm kind of with that person, and I keep in the mindset of like, this is the person I'm going to be with, because I don't just date to just like have fun and to like mess around and like make mistakes and stuff. It's like, no, I chose you to be my girlfriend, and I chose to have this relationship with you because I thought this was something that would it go kind of further in the future with, you know?
Yeah.
Like my sister always is like, hey, you should go with like this girl, like look at this girl, like, and I'm just like, yeah, no, I rather just like settle down and like really just have like kids, wife, and all that stuff, and really not get into that nitty-gritty stuff. And every time I've had sex with someone, I've always said like if I'm like dating them and stuff like that, I've always made it clear from the beginning, like I want kids, and if something happens and you get pregnant, I'm willing to be the father, I'm willing to do all this stuff. I might not be like financially ready and stuff for it, but I'm not gonna back down from taking the responsibility of the fact that this was a two-way street, you know? And like, so I don't know, like for me it's like just commitment and staying with that person, because every time a relationship ends, it was because they either cheated or they just weren't into me anymore. And I was like, I get it, like, you know, that's you have your preference. If I'm not your preference, that's completely fine. Mm-hmm. So, but that's just how I see it, and that's how like I think most people should see it. But all my friends that are guys do not see it like that. They just want to have fun and whatever. But I don't know.
Well, there's another aspect of this that a lot of times men, they don't look at it this way. Mm-hmm. But what I think is happening with a lot of men is there's trauma. Mm-hmm. Especially, I can speak mostly for black men, right?
Yeah.
Some kind of trauma occurs, and it could be something that's it may seem innocent, right? You start having somebody introduce you to something sexual before you're old enough to really comprehend it. So
yeah.
Some guys are watching porno when they're 7, 8 years old, and they're thinking it's cool. One of the things that we do a good job at is selling something as cool. Yeah. And so you watching porno, you're doing these things, you're going behind a bush, kissing girls, you're dating older women, all this stuff. Cool. It's all cool. But like, so if a 16-year-old girl goes out with a 21-year-old guy, that's rape. Mm-hmm. But if a 16-year-old boy goes out with a 20-year-old girl, he's cool.
Yeah. And
so the problem is that a lot of guys, they would never identify it as trauma. They would never see it as like, I was raped. They would never look at it that way, because everybody's patting them on the back. Yo, you bagged that girl, man. I can't believe it. She's right. And so I'm gonna assume, Liam, that you probably haven't had any trauma, anything that you were able to be pure. Imagine just being pure. Like sometimes I think about that. Like, man, I wonder how I would be. Like I think I had to fight to get back to purity, right? And so it's like, but before that, you're like a wolf. You know, you're walking around, you got all your friends, we're just a pack of wolves, and it's like all your trauma plus all their trauma, it's all piled in together, and then we're telling each other more things, and we become deviants, and all this stuff. But the root is trauma. It's we've seen something, we've experienced something, we've done something at an age that we weren't ready to fully deal with it. And so some men never could love nobody because they have so much trauma. And so they it's almost like they get into a relationship, it's already going to be exploding in a certain amount of time because they've had so much trauma. They've seen too much. Even you say you got your father. You watch your father. He got multiple women. Trauma. It's all things that are teaching you something before, like it's not teaching you the right way. And so you do it the wrong way. And if you don't deal with your trauma, you don't go to therapy, you don't go to group, you don't talk to somebody about it, you don't get it out, you don't decide to do something differently, it's just a cycle that repeats itself. You find you get some kids, you put your kids to the same stuff. Oh, and it's an endless cycle over and over. Every 20 years, we're just doing it again. And we're wondering, why are these relationships breaking up? Why are these issues? Trauma. And so men, and it's worse for men, because women will say, I have trauma. Women will say I was mistreated. Women will say something happened to me that shouldn't have happened to me. Women will do all types of things. Men will bottle it up, push it down, and keep going on about their life.
Yep.
They'll be strong and they'll be tough, but they will be traumatized for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
So this is a concept that I've thought about men in trauma in children for a long time. Mm-hmm. My grandfather was brought up in the draft era. And my father was, but it actually kind of ended when he became an adult. That's when they had all the protests and they kind of, the Vietnam War, and they kind of stopped the draft during that time. And men were taught the things that, like I was taught not to cry. You know, I was taught all these things to prepare me to be tough, because my grandfather was, because they taught their kids that, because you were going to war. Like, right. Essentially, you were born as a male, you were going to get drafted in the war, and you were going to go fight for the country. Mm-hmm. And that was almost universal probably around the world at one point. And now we're in an era where that's not, especially in America, that's definitely not the case. Mm-hmm. And but we're still teaching boys not to cry, to be hard, to hold your feelings, but they don't have to go to, for what? You're going to be there.
Yeah.
For your child. And now they're not there for their children, and they can be. And so what do you think that plays a role, like that the whole, as times change, we're behind like where we should be because we're still teaching old methods?
Of course. The whole point of fatherhood to me is like, why would we do the things that didn't work, the things that didn't work on me? Why would I do that to my son and daughters? Mm-hmm. So this is what I'm talking about, thinking. This is what I'm talking about, like doing an assessment of yourself and saying like, these are the things I didn't like growing up. You know, these things are the things that really didn't work for me. And so why would I do the same thing again why would I do it again to my children? I'm not doing that to my children. I'm going to make sure my kids have a step up in the world. No trauma. I'm gonna make sure that they got certain things that are gonna make their life a little bit easier. Now the thing is this: there's this saying where it talks about this. It talks about exactly what you're talking about. Where one generation they're very tough. They make you tough people, and then you get the tough generation. They raise tough people, and then the next generation they raise weak people. Mm-hmm. Because we do all this stuff where we make it where, so since our fathers were so tough on us, we decide, you know what, I'm gonna make it easy for my kid. And so then you make it easy for your kid. Now you raise a kid who's not ready for the world. They not tough. Mm. They weak. They things got taken care of for them. They didn't have to figure nothing out. And so because you have that person raises people who end up being tough, because you can't be weak, because there's repercussion for weakness just like there's repercussion for toughness. And so the key is like, can we find a balance? Because if you just keep doing this whole transition, like it's like there's certain things when I was a kid, when I was my son's age, I had to figure it out. I had to figure it out myself, you know. I was out in the world, and I didn't even think to be like today, me and my son put out mulch in our yard, right? So I was like, boom, we knocked it out in an hour. Whole pallet of mulch, knocked it out. When I was a kid, and then after we did it, threw my son $100. Here's a quick little $100, man. When I was a kid, we would have done the same work, same time, and then that would have been it. It wouldn't have been no $100. It would have been
Kool-Aid, some Kool-Aid.
Yeah, you might get a little snack. You know what I'm saying? And so, but I'm making it easy. And so it's what is he learning about work ethic? What is he learning about putting in like that actually he should have done the mulch by himself. I shouldn't have had to go out and do no mulch. Now I like doing the yard work. I don't mind. But what I'm saying is like if his mindset is at a certain place, he's like, yo, he stayed home today, but I'm gonna make it easy for him. No, he's waiting for me. He's not starting until I get out there. And so it's a cycle that repeats itself. So we got to figure out the balance, because when you raise people that are used to somebody else taking care of it, they don't have to think about all the options that are available to them.
Wow. This is very good stuff. And I believe that we could talk about fatherhood every day, all day, and it just keeps going, and that's how we grow. Mm-hmm. But we're gonna try to wrap this up, and it's hard to wrap this up because I feel like we can go for another hour. But I want to ask you guys both, what one solution, like what is one thing that should be done or could be done to help? Because I believe there's a problem. Especially, I was reading an article on just black men and black culture, and it was like in 1970, 67% of black children were born with unwed parents, and this year it was 72%, and it was just like that's more than half born out of wedlock. And we know if you're born out of wedlock, most likely you're going to be in a separate home over time. And what is the solution? What is the solution to help improve fathers and families? I'm asking both of y'all.
Well, what I would say the solution is more conversations like this. More in school, they should probably have a parenting class, a fatherhood class. More exposure, more conversations where we say like, the path in manhood. This is how it goes. You're gonna become a man, but it's not. Physically being a man and mentally being a man are two different things. And so like. And then fatherhood is a part of the manhood journey. And so when you get to fatherhood, it's like putting out, it's almost like a public service announcement to say, if you become a father, you have to be a father forever. You said fatherhood forever? That's one of my things that we put out, right? Fatherhood is forever. So we're not looking for temporary fathers. We're looking for fathers for the rest of your life. And we to take it a step further, we're looking for fathers who love mothers. Who love the mothers. We love them so much, we're gonna marry them. So we can have an intact family. We're gonna learn about how do we build on this relationship? How do we keep it alive? I've been married almost 22 years. And it's you go through ups and downs, it's different phases. And so it's like, well, what's your level of commitment? What do you and so it's like really kind of like I think we just have to have more talking, more conversations, more exposure, more experiences. You got to balance off all the negativity that's put out there in the world. And so there's negativity that's shared and it's normalized. And so we have to make being a father, being a husband, being there for your children normalized as well.
Yeah, I definitely agree with him, but I also think that to show them the step up, you know what I mean? Like to show them situations where you have to step up and to like really take charge of certain stuff is really important, and to really give the men a lot of empathy too, like to really show them like this is like the damage, this is what happens if you don't really own up to what you need to do as a person. Because I think a lot of these people, especially my age, I notice just don't care about how it affects other people and how it affects their lives long term. And they just will do it because for the short term fun. Mm-hmm. And to me, I don't really understand that. But to really empathize with what the future and what certain stuff holds with your actions, I think that can really make an impact on certain guys, and to really show them what it's like to, if you do mess up, to step up and take ownership of what you've done, and kind of teach them how, from what they did, when they step up and how to go from there, you know, if that makes sense. So
So between the two of you, I heard loving mothers, accountability, conversations, and those are all, I believe, definitely things that must happen. But I also think men need to have groups, and I think at a high level, Muhammad, you have groups and men participate, but I think it should be like that should be like an automatic, like you play on a basketball team, like you're in a men's group, like it should be something that you do because you start to trust other men, like you know. For me personally, you know how comforted it was. I don't know, a few weeks ago, Muhammad, I called you up and I was distraught about like a problem I was having with my kid. Right, and I called you up, and I basically called Muhammad up crying. And 10 years ago, that would have never happened, no matter what I was feeling, because I was worried that my friend was going to call my other friend and be like, yo, you know, Joaquin called me up like a little punk crying about his baby, you know. But I didn't, like, since I've been hanging in these men groups, I feel so comfortable to have that person. And I think a lot of men, like, sometimes there may be something I can't go to my father about for a variety of reasons. And it may be something that you can't go to your son about, but you want to talk to somebody about it and get some different viewpoints before you address the situation. Right. And so I think the conversations, the loving the mother, I think that's so important. My view of love was sex. That's what love was. And I thought, to get a woman, you get the sex. But what happened was I would get the woman, I would get the sex, and then I would be like, okay, what do I do now? Like, I didn't know how to hold a conversation. Like, how do you grow after sex? I had no clue. And those things need to be taught too. Wow, this is good stuff. Any closing thoughts, remarks before I close out this wonderful podcast? From anybody?
No, I think I'm good.
yeah, I think I'm good too. Yeah.
You guys are good? Yeah. I get it. We're done. No. That was Abdul. Say your whole name. I like the way you say it. I was practicing it, but I couldn't get it the way you do it on the introduction. Go ahead. Say your name. I just want to hear it.
Abdul-Rahmaan Muhammad.
No, like how you introduce on the Manhood podcast.
This is Abdul-Rahmaan Muhammad.
Now he has so much energy.
Yeah, it's a little late right now for me.
Oh yeah, it's a little late. It's a little late. Well, that was Abdul dropping wisdom as usual, and we just reflected on what it means to be a father and to be fathered. And in the beginning, I forgot. I was moving so fast, I forgot about producer over here. I call him young wise one, Liam. He's the producer, man behind the scene. Steps in as needed be. And if this episode touched you, don't run from it. I've been running my whole life. I've been on a track team without running in the Olympics. Talk about it. Share it with your friends, because silence won't save us. Like, if we keep running, we're never going to be able to save this society of broken men. But the storytelling of this may be able to save us. This is a healing room. This is an open room for healing. This is about men owning and being responsible and accountable for their behavior. Make sure you follow the Manhood podcast. Connect with My People's Clinical Services. They have plenty of support over there. We're actually doing a men's health conference this weekend at UConn. Abdul, talk briefly about that.
Yeah, this weekend we have our second annual Men's Health and Wellness Weekend. We last year we went up to Vermont. This year we decided to stay local. It should be a power-packed weekend. We have a number of presenters. Joaquin will be doing brotherhood yoga. We have sound healing. We have fatherhood monologues workshop, a speak life into your brother workshop, a drumming workshop, and a dream chasing workshop. So anybody that's available on Saturday, all of our rooms are booked, but you can come up on Saturday and you can get involved. So feel free to join us at the Graduate Hotel. We start at 9:30 and go all day.
Is Professor Booker going to be there?
He sure is.
He sure will. That's I met Liam through Professor Booker.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So that's that connection. And unfortunately, by the time this airs, it'll be gone. But I wanted to present that because
It's okay.
yeah. for next year, because
It's always the third annual. Yeah.
Yep, it'll be the third one. Bigger and better every year. So until next time, stay grounded, stay growing. You're not a father that's absent. You're gonna be a father that's present. Thank you.
Sometimes it might rain, sometimes it might snow, sometimes you might cry, be sad, you know. But that's shades of a man, baby. Shades of a man. Shades of a man. Sometimes you might stop, sometimes you might go. You might make mistakes, but that's just how you grow. Shades of a man, baby. Shades of a man. Shades of a man.